Hello everyone, my name is Super, Destiny Enthusiast. In this video, I hope to answer what will be the best legendary heavy weapons with this coming reset and try to predict how much damage we will be losing coming this next reset. With Vorpal and Whirlwind Blade being nerfed tomorrow, it's important to know what the next and best or better options for damage perks will be. Now, to be perfectly clear, this isn't a DPS test per se. This is just a numbers test to find out what our best options for pure raw damage is, and there will be some special cases that will be explained more in detail. If you think my numbers are wrong or have proof that they are, let me know. I'm not a machine, at least not yet. Feedback is much appreciated. With that said, let's get into the breakdown. We will start with rockets first. Now, before we talk about other damage perks, let's talk about how much rockets with Vorpal are currently doing and how much they may potentially be doing with this upcoming reset. I tested a variety of rockets with and without impact casting, and various different perk setups, but let's start with Vorpal rocket launchers. For those who are unaware, all rocket frames do the same damage to bosses. It doesn't matter if one is an aggressive frame or a high impact frame. They will end up doing the same damage, the only thing that matters are the perks. So for Vorpal rocket launchers with impact casting, say your rocket fires 7 rockets without any reserves like Hezen's Vengeance. Well, currently your max damage you could do to Kali here is about 314,000. Now, with the upcoming nerf, if we take that damage of the rockets, the max you're going to do will most likely be around 300,000. Now, there may be some outlier data here. Say you shoot Kali in the head with one of your rockets, and the crit multiplier makes the impact of your rocket double, then yes, the damage outlier can happen. Now, what if you don't have impact casting, but you have Vorpal? Well, I ran the same test on the Hothead Adept with Vorpal, and I was getting the same base damage numbers per rocket shot, 34,000 per shot, and the impact changed from 10,717 to 9,743. Say you hit all 7 of your rockets, well the damage it's going to do to Kali will be 307,000 or so. That, with the pre-nerf Vorpal, with the upcoming nerf, you'll be hitting around 293,000, almost 294k. So comparing that, the max damage we were doing before the nerf is a pretty noticeable gap. So, okay, with that said, what are the best perks to replace Vorpal? Well, to be honest, the short answer is just Explosive Light. But let's break it down. Any lasting impression rocket I tested with 7 in the mag that I tested on Kali will net you around 319,000, almost 320k. And that is without impact casing. With impact casing, you're looking at about 325k. Now, this is where perks come into play. Say you have a code with field prep and lasting impression. That will net you 9 rockets with lasting impression, and if you have impact casing, you're looking at about 417k. Any lasting impression rocket compared to the up-and-coming nerfed and Vorpal rockets is going to be the best picked. Now, some of you may be saying, okay, but I want to know straight up what is the best rocket and what is the best perk. Well, the best rocket and the best perk is Hothead with Explosive Light, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, I know some of you may be wondering, well, what about cluster bombs? Well, cluster bombs can potentially outdamage Explosive Light, but, and I'm saying a massive but here, good luck getting that to happen half the time. Your cluster bombs are going to not hit, or all of them will not even spawn in on the boss hitting it. They're not useless, I'm just saying they can be inconsistent. I had some runs here on Kali that went from 351k to somehow getting 310k to 415k. I don't know how it happens, it's just the game's RNG, it could be a crit multiplier difference. You're just better off going with Explosive Light. Particularly Hothead with Explosive Light and Field Prep will do the most damage out of all rockets currently in the game. Ascendancy is good, it comes behind at around 340k damage for its entire magazine with Explosive Light. The edge Hothead has is that it can have Field Prep, which will net you extra reserves and extra rockets, and if you're able to get all of those rockets off with Explosive Light, you'll end up doing more damage than Ascendancy can. Now, you may be wondering, okay, what is the max damage Hothead could do with Field Prep and Explosive Light? Well, the max damage you could do here, at least on Kali here in the DPS test theoretically, would be about 440k provided you get all shots with Explosive Light and the weapon has impact casting. So, with that said, what are the top 5 rockets I should be looking out for? Well, if we include all factors such as buffs and perks and things like that, I would say number 1 is Hothead with Explosive Light, Field Prep, and impact casting. Number 2 is Ascendancy with Explosive Light. Number 3 is Heretic with Field Prep and Lasting Impression. Royal Entry is number 4 with Field Prep, Lasting Impression. And I would say Code Duo with Frenzy or Lasting Impression and Field Prep. Now, you may ask, why is Heretic above Royal Entry? Well, it's because Heretic is Arc, and if we include all buffs, Hunters can massively take advantage of any Arc rocket launcher with massive macros. From my view, it is above Royal Entry in regards to its damage capabilities. Now, with rockets done, let's move on to swords. Now, for those of you wondering about class-specific swords, they're getting their own separate video, as Crown Splitter has pretty much just been massacred on all fronts, so they will not be in this video, and we'll get a separate video. So, I tested a different variety of swords, and seeing how I don't know how the damage will be spread out amongst the 10 stacks of Whirlwind Blade this coming Tuesday, I decided to just test a few swords out and see what the perks were, and see what a few decent replacements were. I will discuss why Whirlwind will be significantly worse when it comes out tomorrow, but if you just want a short answer for what perks you should be looking for on your swords, Surrounded or Frenzy is going to be best, and Assassin's Blade isn't that bad either. But let's start with Bequest with Assassin's Blade. A light attack with the perk active hits for 10,929 damage, and the heavy attack total damage hits for 26,412. Now, theoretically, let's say you keep this perk up the entire time, discounting the ammo cost for killing other enemies. Let's just say, theoretically, this perk is up the entire time, and every time you have your heavy attack, you use it. Well, depending on your role, it will take somewhere between 5 to 7 light attacks before you can actually use your heavy attack. Let's say it takes 6, just a nice even number. Every 6 light attacks, you have to use your heavy attack, but let's say you start off the damage phase with a heavy attack. Well, theoretically, your damage, if you did a heavy attack, light attack, and then heavy light until you ran out of ammo, your damage would be in the ballpark of around 700k with the perk active if you had all your ammo and the perk active the entire time, at least on Cali. Now, is this realistic at all? No, you're probably realistically only going to get around 400k to 500k damage off with an Assassin's Blade sword if you can keep the perk up. Now, compare this to any caster frame sword, at the moment it is significantly better, at least until they get buffed. Solace's Scar with Vorpal right now only does up to 360k at the highest. If you do the same heavy light attack, heavy method that I mentioned before, tomorrow it'll be doing 344k compared to Temptation's Hook's maximum damage potential, with Whirlwind Blade being 375k or so. Also, on a side note, can we have some sort of explanation as to why Temptation's Hook impact is so much lower compared to Solace's Score and still outdamages it? Like, Bungie, please. Now, don't write caster frames off completely, as they have some better perk options like Chain Reaction, Surrounded, and Frenzy, and they're also getting a buff soon to their ammo economy, so they may potentially be better tomorrow. We'll see. Now, staying on the topic of Whirlwind Blade, let's talk about Falling Guillotine really quickly. In the clip that I show, what I believe to be the absolute god roll in my opinion. Now, to Cali here, the maximum damage right now you could do is about 633k or so. Assuming you do light attacks till it stacks up to the max stacks of Whirlwind, and then a heavy light attack until you have to do your heavy attack available. Then rinse and repeat until you run out of sword ammo. Sounds great, right? Now, cut the damage number down by at least a third. Now, you may be wondering, why would you do that? Well, this is more of an estimate and a prediction, so put your tinfoils hat on for this one, but Whirlwind Blade having to go up to 10 stacks instead of 5 is going to severely hurt your sword's ammo economy. Significantly more if you don't have Relentless paired with it. This is why Crown Splitter is getting its own separate video. You can cut the number by a third and you get around 422k. Now, I could be way off or I could end up being generous. I'll find out tomorrow when I do the DPS test. Needless to say, the impact of the Whirlwind Blade nerf will be at least a bit noticeable in terms of DPS and just raw damage. The best swords aren't really going to change. Falling Guillotine is still going to be one of the best options and will still be good and still be strong. So will others. They just won't be as strong and as useful as they used to be. Now, let's move on to the really important part of this video, the linears. Now, for linears, I am fully aware that all Techian raid bosses and all Technium bosses have a crit spot multiplier. Shout out to Raid Secrets for filling me in on this on Reddit. Thank you guys. Don't worry, for the numbers I will show, I already factored out the crit multiplier. The spreadsheet is below if you're curious about the damage numbers being off or anything. I'm pretty sure they're not. If they are, you can correct me in the comments. I will be appreciative of it. Now, I won't be going over every single roll or every single coil or charge masterwork, as I don't have every single roll, and this video is honestly getting way longer than I wanted it to be. And in the end, there is a clear winner anyways. All linears were tested with particle deconstruction as well, so don't worry about that. So let's start with pre-nerf Vorpal. We will start with reads. I ran a test with both liquid coils and accelerated coils with the charge time masterwork. Now, say you got all shot off for both. So you got all your shots off and you got particle deconstruction to proc as well. For liquid coils, your total damage number with pre-nerf Vorpal is going to be around 700k. This is without Kali's crit multiplier applied to it. With accelerated coils, your total damage and output will be around 663k. This again is pre-nerf Vorpal without Kali's crit multiplier. Now, before we argue which is better, each coil has its specific place and encounter, and both are good. This is just a numbers test. Now, when Vorpal gets put to 10%, you can expect the numbers to drop to around 665k for liquid coils, and for accelerated, it'll drop to around 639k. Now, for those saying, hey, linears are getting a 10% buff tomorrow, you're right, they will be. They will be getting a separate updated video this week, which will also include Sleeper Stimulant, as it is getting its own buff. Stay tuned for that. Now, let's move on to Needle with Vorpal. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get one with either liquid or accelerated, or any of the magazine boosters. But I did get one with a charge time masterwork, so hopefully that satisfies you guys enough. A Needle with pre-nerf Vorpal will do around 648k to Kali here, at least from what I tested. That again is without Kali's crit multiplier. A Needle with nerf Vorpal will do around 620k to Kali without the crit multiplier. Now, that is a pretty significant drop. These numbers could also be increased if you had field prep for X's reserves as well. Now, a note, Needle can also roll with Frenzy, which is probably the best replacement for a damage perk with the upcoming Vorpal nerf. Just a shout out there. But hey, Needle can stack with Focusing Lens, right? So if we add that on, you get the values of 810k with the pre-nerf Vorpal and 775k with the nerf Vorpal. That will be dropping somewhat around there for tomorrow. At least that's what will appear on Kali. But hey, Firing Line exists on Reach Regret with triple tap. That should do especially more damage if you have Ionize, right? Well, from what I'm testing, yep. Firing Line, Triple Tap, and Ionize have the maximum damage it will do to Kali. If I hit all 19 of my shots without liquid or accelerated coils, and without a charge time masterwork, it will be 1,100,146. This number could be higher or lower depending on the coils or battery, as well as depending on the masterwork. It is the king of legendary linears right now. Now, a shout out here is Tarantula. This thing really doesn't get enough love, and it should get a lot more notoriety. Tarantula I tested on Kali with box breathing and enhanced battery, which allowed for it to get 6 shots. If you have Ionize, you can get 7 in the mag. This is important for later. Now, the max damage you could do Kali with box breathing on Tarantula, if you didn't die or miss a single shot, and you had every single shot with box breathing, and you had enhanced battery, the max you can do is 600,071k. That is the max with Ionized. In field prep, this number could go even higher. Now, this is where things can take off, at least for Tarantula. If you add Focusing Lens to it, you can get to around 839k. That is higher than Threaded Needle and could take this, very much higher with Bacchus. With Bacchus and Focusing Lens, you could potentially outdamage reads with Tarantula if you time everything correctly in a certain encounter. Now, is this likely to happen? Is this, very easy to do? No, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to get this to pop off with Tarantula. Is it impossible? No. So, in conclusion, what is the best linear for just straight up damage? Short answer, it's Reed with Firing Line. The long answer, well, in most cases like Patrol or for GMs, it will be Tarantula with box breathing. There's no reason just not to run it. For raid bosses, it's Reed's Regret, then Tarantula, and then Needle. Now, Reed's Regret should be used with Firing Line. If you're using it with Vorpal, you're better off using Tarantula or Needle. Now, of course, DPS and damage timers, filters, different effects will affect these. Now, I expect Needle to be more popular and better as fast-paced DPS encounters than Tarantula, but for GMs where it's slow-paced and you can't always be together with your teammates to trigger Firing Line, Tarantula with box is and should be the top pick. Well, that will do it for the end of the video. I hope you found this all useful. I plan to have this all retested and updated sometime this week, and have a video up sometime this week. I plan to also release a solo flawless guide for the new dungeon for all classes this week as well, so stay tuned for those this week as well. Thanks for watching!